Everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Thank you so much for checking out my latest video. As always, it's much appreciated. Folks, this week I'm doing the top 20 albums of 2025. It's an annual tradition here on the Dark Stuff, as it is on many channels. Lots of content creators like to do their best of the year. And as I always do in every other year, numbers 20 through 11 will be shown in a quick video montage. It's like 1 minute long. Don't sweat it. And then I'll rejoin you and we'll talk about the top 10. Numbers 20 through 11 of the best albums of 2025. Now you have a guidance on where we're going here, okay? So before we get to the top 10, let me just say two things. If you can, please like this video, and if you're not subscribed to the Dark Stuff, please do. I used to hate doing stuff like this, but now I realize it is important, and we need all the help we can get, and it is totally free. Also, I have playlists with cuts from all 20 albums. They're in Spotify and Apple Music, and they are going to be linked down below.
You think I'll let it go, you're mad, you got another thing coming.
Okay, coming in at number 10 is Space Brain by Alex Williams. Alex Williams is an outlaw country artist. This is his third album. He records for the label Lightning Rod Records. And I got into this artist in the best possible way, okay? There's no algorithms involved, right? The algorithm on YouTube or the algorithm on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, none of them pointed me in the direction of Alex Williams. I heard of Alex Williams through straight up word of mouth, okay? One of my good friends had seen him before, told me that this is somebody I would like. We ended up driving out to Buck's Bar and Grill, which is about a half hour away from where I live, not too far. Seeing the guy in concert and loving it. Now, what made me more amenable to going to see this artist is that Alex Williams, though he is an outlaw country artist, decided to do an album, the Space Brain album, where he was going to cover 80s metal tracks. Before we talk about the songs, the album was produced by a guy named Ben Fowler, who is a Grammy-winning producer. He's also worked with Alex on previous records. He's also got some musicians on here. Rob McNally, who has played with Bob Seger and Winona Judd. Dan Dugmore, who has played with ZZ Top and Linda Ronstadt. And Mike Payne, who has played with Luke Bryan. So those are the backing musicians. Okay, there are a couple of guest stars. Tom Kiefer from Cinderella guests on one track. Be pretty easy to guess. It's the cover of Nobody's Fool. And then also Cody Jinks guest stars on the opening track, Flying High Again. The idea of an outlaw country artist doing 80s metal covers was definitely intriguing, but I also thought it could go both ways. It could be sort of like a novelty and kind of jokey, and then I wouldn't necessarily like it, you know, but I thought this was so authentic and so great. And Alex explained at the concert and in other videos that this is the music his dad liked, okay? So he grew up listening to all this stuff, and he wanted to give it treatment like his music, okay? So they do stuff like, you know, Flying High Again from Ozzy, Night Train, Guns N' Roses, Ace of Spades, Motorhead, Nobody's Fool, Cinderella, Round and Round from Rat, Look What the Cat Dragged In from Poison, Wild Side from Motley Crue, Youth Gone Wild from Skid Row, You Got Another Thing Coming, Judas Priest, Getting Better from Tesla. Now, you may have heard those songs 100 times, but now you will hear them in a brand new light once you hear this record. So I went out to the show and I caught Alex Williams' band performing, and there were some songs from the Space Brain album, some of his original songs, and I loved the show. I bought the vinyl from them right at that night and have been listening to this ever since. I've recommended this album to numerous people, and all of them but one have walked away really, really liking it, and that's why I strongly recommend this. Again, if you like 80s metal, if you like outlaw country, if you like whatever, even if you think I don't care about any of that stuff, you put these two together. I mean, when you hear Wild Side by Motley Crue done in this style, you just won't believe it. And lyrics do take on a different dimension here, because mostly you just think of hair metal as not really being all that deep, but you're seeing that some of these songs, you know, when it's slowed down and done in a different style, the lyrics are actually pretty interesting. Getting a very strong recommendation coming in at number 10 is Space Brain by Alex Williams. All right, coming in at number 9 is the album Force Majeure from the Australian rock band Delivery. I reviewed this record a couple months ago in a video, and I talked about how great it was. It's kind of like garage punk a little bit, but I also felt like it was a little bit like the Hives meets something more Britpop or something. I don't know. I was kind of like garage punk meets Britpop in a way. Okay, I don't know if that makes any sense or if the band would be into that or not, but that's kind of what I feel when I have it, because it doesn't have as hard an edge of the punk rock sound, but you can tell they're definitely inspired by punk music, no question. Okay, in my previous review, I pointed out how great the album was, how much I love the band, although I did say that I think the name Delivery is pretty weak, and I still stand by that. It is. However, it's too late. Now it's in my top 10, so they can't possibly change. Okay, but I love this record from start to finish. I've been playing it a lot on my radio show, been listening to it nonstop. My favorite tracks would absolutely be like $1 Million Bucks, the new Alphabet, Digging the Hole, and probably Deadlines. Maybe what else? So those are probably my favorite tracks off the record. It is a solid release. I mean, I'm sure they're on the verge of releasing another album because it's been almost a year already. But before that album arrives, make sure you are very familiar with Force Majeure. Number 8 is the self-titled album from the newest indie rock / Americana supergroup called Snocaps. Now, Snocaps is Katie Crutchfield, aka Waxahachie, her twin sister Allison Crutchfield, who works as a solo artist and has played in bands with Katie in the past. They don't say that she played in Waxahachie, but hello, when I saw Waxahachie in 2015, she was absolutely there on stage playing with her. It also includes MJ Lenderman and Brad Cook. Now, MJ Lenderman, you know, is a solo artist. He was in Wednesday. Brad Cook is also the producer who produced the last the last Waxahachie record and the last Hooray for the Riff Raff record, and who knows, probably the MJ Lenderman album too. He's doing all of the cool Americana records at this point. So this is a bit of a super group, and they assembled, and this album just kind of was announced and came out of nowhere. I don't know of anyone who was anticipating this or was waiting for it, but hell, it is so good. Now, when you have artists like Katie Crutchfield and MJ Lenderman, they're definitely more on the Americana side. Although Waxahachie used to be more of an indie rock band in their earlier days, 2015, 16, 17, they were doing more of that sound, and then they kind of moved into a more Americana sound as the years have gone by. So it's not as though Katie Crutchfield doing indie music is unusual. The way it kind of seems to shake out, and again, I don't have the full credits, but it seems to me that the songs that sound more Americana, alt country, whatever, are Katie Crutchfield, the ones that she sings, and her sister Allison Crutchfield then sings on the ones that are a little bit more poppy or indie sounding, like this lead-off single, Coast. That's definitely not an Americana song, and that's one that Allison sings. So they've already signaled that this is maybe a one-off, and these guys aren't going to be performing together again as Snocaps. I mean, they all have their own individual stuff, and I'm sure Katie Crutchfield and MJ Lenderman will work together again. I'm sure Brad Cook will work with these guys. But as Snocaps, this is probably a one-off. So enjoy it while you can. And it is really, really enjoyable. I mean, besides the song Coast, Heathcliff is great. Cherry Hard Candy, Avalanche, Over Our Heads. Pretty much every song on this record is good. Snocaps, if it is a one-off, I'll take it.
I try to run, head for the hills.
Number 7 belongs to Wet Leg and their second album, Moisturizer. This album hit me like a Mack truck or whatever when it first came out. Now, I was familiar with Wet Leg from their previous album and Chase Long and, you know, all the songs, and I really love that record. But I honestly, if Scout's Honor here, I did not expect Wet Leg to return. I thought they were going to be like just a one-off and then they were going to break up or something, which is not a commentary on the quality of the music. It's just a fact that I just didn't see them having a really long career. I was wrong, fortunately. I compared them, in my opinion, positively to Elastica in a long-form review that I did earlier in the year, and I will link to that below. That's where I talked about all the different songs, what I thought were the overall themes on the album, compared it to the previous record, etc. And I will sum it up real quickly of saying I loved it then, and I still love it now. But I didn't always love it. So my initial response, as you see in the review, is that I thought it was great. It's just a song. It's an album thematically is just about being in love. Okay, and it's hard to really hate on that. But after listening to it for about a month and liking it, I don't know, I started seeing some more negative reviews or just talking to people who were kind of down on the new record, or at least didn't think it was as good as the first one. And I don't know whether just hearing this, contrarian view kind of changed my mind, but then I sort of stopped listening to it for a bit. But I came back to it and started playing You and Me at Home on my radio show and ended up being like, you know what, this is undeniably great. Okay, I am going to go back to playing it constantly, and I have played it constantly. Now, the one thing about the radio and playing Wet Leg is that there are FCC violations on virtually every song. But the band was great. They sent a clean version of the entire album for radio, so that's awesome. But yeah, when you're talking about, Majeure or Jennifer's Body, Catch These Fists, CPR, those all have a lot of swear words in it or whatever. And here in America, I don't know if you're going to be watching from somewhere else, but here in America, we still have the FCC, and they still come down on stupid shit like that. But anyways, this record is really, really strong. The band plays even better than they did on the first record. I can't say enough positive things about Moisturizer from Wet Leg, my number 7 album of 2025. Okay, one of my most anticipated albums of the year was definitely Die Spitz with their debut album, Something to Consume. Ever since I saw this band live in 2023 when they were the opening act for Amyl and the Sniffers, I've been just completely obsessed with the group. I absolutely love them. I bought their record from them that night and have been listening to it a ton ever since then. I've seen probably every video on YouTube of them performing live. They're so fucking great. But the real question was, okay, are you just a good live band or can you make a good record? And the answer is they can make a good record. So there's a lot of debate about what style this band is. Are they a punk rock band? Are they a metal band? Are they a grunge band or whatever? And I would say all of the above. Because the album is kind of a hybrid in style that is part metal, it is definitely part punk, and they're definitely very, very strong 90s kind of grunge influences, and I like the merging of all three. In my long-form review of the album, I compared the album to Failure, the band Failure, and a number of other comparisons, and I went really deep into the lyrics on some of the songs on that particular album, so I won't duplicate that stuff here. I will link to the review below. The album, in the gatefold, I don't know what it's like on the CD, but in the vinyl, they do print all of the lyrics, and I think that's really important that they did because these are really intense and strong lyrics. When you're talking songs like Voir Dire or American Porn or Sound to No One or Go Get Dressed, Ride With My Girls, whatever, they are all really, really interesting lyrics, and not just those ones that I mentioned. Also, the playing on this record is really, really good. I mean, I know that they rotate some in the concert because 3 of the members can play drums, and I don't know if that's how they did it on the record because they don't specifically say like who did what in the credits. The band is getting tons of hype, and I have to say it is completely worth it. I went into that show in 23 not knowing who they were. I was pumped about Amyl and the Sniffers, but I didn't really know who Die Spitz was, and I walked out of that show being like, who the hell are Amyl and the Sniffers? And I've been just completely into Die Spitz ever since. I still haven't seen them for a second time. I'm hoping 2026 brings them close to where I live, but we'll have to see. Either way, these guys are going to be just massive, I can tell. They have such a strong future. Amazing performances. There's 3 different singers, so you get different perspectives from all the... I mean, God, it's so good. And, I mean, you can get the really heavy stuff, like Throw Yourself to the Sword. You can get the really intense, like American Porn. Sound to No One is really good. The initial single, Pop Punk Anthem, sorry for the delay, really, really great. Not exactly a pop punk song, but there must be some extra something into the message. So again, my number 6, Die Spitz, Something to Consume. Incredible. Coming in at at number 5 is the 17th, I think maybe 18th, I'm not sure, studio album from New York City band the Mommyheads. If you've been watching this channel for any amount of time and you've seen any of my previous best of videos, you know that the Mommyheads are pretty much always in the countdown. Okay, going back to like 2017, 2018 or something, I think every record they put out, and they put out one every year, has always made my top 10. Or top 20 at least. In this case, they're coming in at number 5 with this particular record. So as with many of these other records, I did do a full-length review of the album. I'll link to that one below. I think this album is a really, really smart kind of combination of maybe prog and indie pop. For years, people have been saying that the Mommyheads are a prog band, and I know that a lot of prog people on YouTube and websites and magazines have written about them because they love them as a prog band. And I knew them from the 90s when they were definitely more of an up-and-coming indie band. They had a tiny element of some jamming in there, but for the most part, they were just a really quirky indie pop band, and they used to get a lot of comparisons to XTC. So I think with this album, when I put it on, and the first song was called Triumph and Crash, I think when I put that one on, for the first time, I heard the prog. And just recently, anecdotally, I was driving around with a friend in the car who didn't really know who the band was. And this came on, and he was like, whoa, what is this prog, you know? So I was like, I guess people do hear it as a more prog-oriented release. I still want to qualify it by saying is that it's a hybrid maybe of prog and indie pop, because it's not like excessive jamming. It's more accessible prog. There's still crazy time signatures, and the musicians are extremely great, talented players, every single one of them. And they do make complicated music, but it's not so complicated that it alienates the average listener, such as myself, who really has no tolerance for prog rock, and I don't like songs anything more than like 6 minutes, and that's maxing out to me. I mean, I don't want to hear it beyond that. Occasional exceptions, and I know jazz is the exception for that, but this isn't jazz, so that's why I'm not including it for the Mommyheads. But they managed to keep it tight, and again, for their 17th album, possibly 18th album, I don't know, they have delivered the goods once again. Very, very smart lyrics. They do make you think. No Quietus. Quietus is about an ending or a death or whatever, and so this album is supposed to be like reaffirming faith in your life and in moving forward or whatever, or in affirming your decisions that you've made so far in this life. And again, I don't want to get too deep into the lyrics. That's the message that I got from it. By the way, if you want to get the Mommyheads albums, I've never seen one in a store, so I do think you have to go to their Bandcamp page, mommyheads.bandcamp.com, and order it through there. You can get a download from them on their website. They do sell vinyl of some of their previous releases. They may have this new one up there, not sure. But that's how you get to their stuff. All right, my number 4 is All That Is Over from the Dublin, Ireland band Spitz. I did a whole video on these guys on the record a little while ago, so again, we'll tell you that it is linked below. But this band really hit me hard on this particular record. Now, I heard their previous one a little bit too, and it came just right before this one came out. And this time the band is recording for the Sub Pop label here in the United States, City Slang over in the UK. City Slang is a pretty great label that currently has, I think, the Lambrini Girls, and they have King Hannah, which is my number 1 album of last year. So solid release, and now they've got this record licensed or released or whatever in the United States. They're going to be touring in the States at the beginning of the year, and then hopefully later on too. But before we get to any of that touring, let's actually talk about the record. So, the album is very, very guitar dominated. It's mostly pretty aggressive and loud and great. It does slow down a couple of times with songs like Better, but for the most part, it is pretty good. It's pretty revved up punk rock sounding music. So my favorite tunes on the record are certainly Descartes, Need, Beg, Something's Gonna Happen, Pieces, and Better. They're all really great. I've played most of this record on the show so far. It's the album that keeps delivering. I mean, there are no duds on this particular record. I've stated my goal of 2026 is to try and see this band live, because I have seen some YouTube clips, but the fact is that doesn't compare to actually being in the room. Nobody knows that better than me, I suppose. But anyways, this is one, maybe you haven't heard of it, but give this one a shot. All That Is Over from Spitz. Coming in at number 3 is the band Snowmen from New York City and their debut album, A Kick to the Face. Again, longtime viewers will know that I discovered this band by seeing them on TikTok. Okay, now I'm nearly 55 years old, so I don't use TikTok a lot. I mean, in fact, most of the time I just watch comedy on there, or sometimes they got, cute girls dancing or whatever. And that's like my diary of TikTok. Okay, I never expected to see music, and I started seeing all these little video clips for their song "You Can't Relate," which was their debut single. And I saw it 3 or 4 times, and that was enough to get me to go to Google or whatever and look for them. And they just had one song at the time. Okay, they had formed a band in the early 2024, and this was maybe September 2024. So I was calling them a fetus band. Like, they were so new, they weren't even a baby band. But I loved it because it had this very post-punk, Gang of Four type sound, and that's kind of what that particular track reminded me of. Over the course of the next year, the band started releasing, one song at a time. And first there was, Make Time Waste Time, 001, Profit Margins. These were all various singles, and I kept buying them because I wanted to play them on my show. And streaming, you can't just take the songs off the streaming, so I went ahead and bought them off their Bandcamp, have been playing them. So I've been trying to spread the word about Snowmen to as many people as I can, sharing their videos from YouTube, or trying to get people to stream it or whatever, maybe just buy it. I'd love to get the band here to Omaha, and we, fingers crossed, we're going to work on something. Who knows? So the songs have great melodies, they have good lyrics, the playing is really cool, really, really good. Hard to believe that this is a debut album from a band that formed at the beginning of 2024. Now, maybe they were in other bands before that. I'm sure they were. But these guys working so seamlessly together as they do on this particular record is just hard to believe. I mean, they're my number 3 album, okay? Appearing higher than big records like from Wet Leg and stuff like that, because this album is just so effing strong. And I hope by putting it so close to the top that people will take it more seriously and actually give it a listen. You can go to their Bandcamp page, and I will link that below. That's where you can actually purchase the album at this point, a digital download. Whether there's going to be physical copies at some point in the future, I don't know. That's something you could email them about and ask them, I mean, if I had to choose, I would say my favorite songs are 001, Profit Margins, You Can't Relate. They're all really good. Goslings I've been playing on my radio show the last 3 weeks or so, and it seems like it's getting a good response. So anyways, Snowmen, my TikTok discovery, with their debut album, A Kick to the Face, comes in at number 3. Coming in number 2, Superchunk, Songs in the Key of Yikes. Now, they get the award for Best Album Title of the Year, without question. It's the 13th studio album from Superchunk, which seems like a low number when you consider their debut album came out in 1989, but they did have about a 10-year break where they really didn't do all that much. They never broke up, but they were on a real hiatus where they would perform one show a year or something. So maybe take 10 years out of that time. But they've been on a real roll lately with their last couple of records, and this one is part of that roll. I absolutely love this record. And I started saying I did a video review of this, of course, and in that review, I started saying that, I feel like I can relate to the lyrics from Mac more than ever now. And he and I are roughly the same age. I think he's maybe a year or two older. But when he's singing songs like, No Hope and Careless, and Is It Making You Feel Something, Some Green, I feel like I've been able to relate to the lyrics much more than I ever have with Superchunk, and they've been very relatable. I mean, but for something about this record, Songs in the Key of Yikes, it's not a political record, don't sweat it, but it is talking about, getting older a little bit, adjusting to life from a different way, a different perspective, and that was really hitting me in all the feels or whatever on this particular record. However, if you're not an old person like me, you can still get into the punky energy, and it's they're not doing on the mouth level, speed or whatever, but they are still playing very upbeat, catchy hard rock. And this is the first album with their new drummer, Laura, who is replacing John Worster, who left the band after 30 years. Laura Balance, the founding member of the band along with Mac, plays on the record, but of course she doesn't tour with Superchunk. That's usually left to Jason Narducci or Betsy Boots. Those are the two people that usually fill in for those shows. Songs in the Key of Yikes, lucky number 13 for Superchunk. It is fantastic. I know they only hit Omaha where I live like every 10 years, so probably won't be seeing them for quite a while, but if they come to your town, I would absolutely endorse going. Superchunk is my number 2.
I'm carrying a shovel.
If you've watched my channel this year, I think you have a pretty decent idea what the number 1 album is going to be. It is Billboard Heart by Deep Sea Diver. I love this record. I did a video 8 or 9 months ago talking about these 6 records are the ones getting me through 2025. And this was the first one I talked about, and I strongly hinted that this will end up as my number 1 album. But, you know, it's impossible to say mid-year because you do have other stuff that could be coming out. And so you don't want to automatically say it's going to be the number 1. But, I mean, I had a feeling that it would. Billboard Heart is Deep Sea Diver's 4th record, first for the Seattle independent label Sub Pop. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's their best record. Bandleader Jessica Dobson, who is the singer, the guitar player, the primary songwriter, is just on fire on this record. Okay, from the second that I heard the very first advanced single, which was the title track, Billboard Heart, I was like, I am in love with this. And then it just keeps getting better. What do I know? Emergency, Shovel, Loose Change, Always Waving Goodbye, See in the Dark, Happiness is Not a Given. Those are just some of the songs, but they're all really great on this one. Her guitar playing is phenomenal. Her performance is great. To short shift the other members of the band. They're all really good too, but it's really hard not to focus on Jessica Dobson. She is the leader of the band. These are her songs, and all of them are so good. Now, I was able to catch the band live earlier this year. I took a road trip actually out to Des Moines, Iowa, and caught them, and it was phenomenal. I have a whole video about that documenting the whole trip and the show and everything, and it was... I've been waiting for 5 years to see this band live, and it was absolutely worth the wait. Met a lot of really cool people in the crowd, too, who were waiting to see Deep Sea Diver for a really long time. That was cool that a lot of other people in the same exact circumstances. I said in my other review that this is the kind of music that I wish mainstream music sounded like, right? So there really isn't much. There aren't many bands in mainstream music anymore. It's all solo artists, and everything is Tate McRae and Charlie XCX and all this kind of bullshit. But one can hope. One can hope that maybe this is the kind of stuff that will someday return to the mainstream because it is so effing good. Now, if you take any of my recommendations from this particular video, I would say try Deep Sea Diver first and foremost. And they have the previous record called Impossible Weight, has some guest appearances from Sharon Van Etten. If this floats your boat, Jessica Dobson, as a studio musician, used to play for Beck. A touring musician, used to play for Beck and used to play with the Shins and some other artists too. So there's some little coolness points or something. But really, I can't recommend it more. I've talked about this record 4 or 5 times this year on the channel, and I kind of in the back of my mind knew it was going to be number 1 as soon as I heard it all the way through. But you got to hold open. Maybe there's going to be something that comes out that will beat it. And no, it didn't happen this year. So wrapping up here, I would say that 2025 was a decent year for music. Decent. Not amazing. I mean, usually when I start off doing this stuff, I come up with at least like 50 or 60 albums, and then I whittle it down to 20. Okay? This time, I got about 35. And then I whittled those 35 down to 20. So significant lower. Maybe I just didn't hear all the good stuff. You know, there were certainly other records that were out there that Juliana Hatfield put out a record so late in the year that I didn't even get a chance to hear it before making this list. Who knows how great that is or whatever. I mean, I just don't know. All right, as I leave you today, I want to point out one more time that I do have playlists with about 2 songs from each of the records. They are down below, linked down below on Apple and Spotify, so you can check them out. That is just your means to get a taste. Then I'm asking you to go to the record store and buy some of these records. Okay, just do it. You won't be sorry. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching. This has been The Dark Stuff. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.